Welcome back. So for this, we're going to now start to take all our different pieces and arrange them so that we have a completed and cohesive podcast sound. So for my podcast, I want to start with my music. And for music, I like to have it what I call fade in a little bit. So that way I know that it doesn't just go blah right into our face. So to do that, you can do a couple of things. So the one way to do that is you can click edit and you can click fade in. The other way is up here. If you look at the top right, we have these little, click on this so it shows, we have these little dots that'll show up. And if I take that, I can drag it and that's my fade. So I can choose how long do I want to have it fade in. So I can do that to see if I like that or not. And a lot of times if I'm just playing with this track, what I'll do is I want to go to my other tracks and just make them quiet right now. So do you see this little sound icon? I can mute these tracks and they'll kind of get grayed out. So I know that right now I can just listen to this. So let's hear what this sounds like. So do you hear how it started off quiet and it kind of built in? So I like to do that. And I also like to end my tracks that way. But I'm not going to end my track yet because I want to add my intro. So I'm going to be adding in one more audio track today. And what I'm going to do in my intro is I'm just going to say, hey, welcome to the blah, blah, blah podcast. I'm your host, Misty. I'm not going to use my whole name because I want to protect my identity. So just my first name, or if you have like a nickname you want to go by for your podcast, you can do that. And then I'm going to introduce whatever story or poem or writing that I'm going to be doing today. Or if I'm doing an interview, I might introduce who I'm interviewing. So we're going to do one more track. And we're going to do a voice and microphone. And again, right, I'm going to do voice. I'm going to try to make sure that reverb is down. And then I'm going to hit start recording. Hey guys, I'm your host, Misty. Welcome to the Poetry Podcast. Today, we're going to be listening to a poem by Shel Silverstein. And now I'm done with my recording. I'm going to come down and you can see I have my recording here. So what I'm going to do is I want to actually have my recording line up a little bit with my intro. So I want my music to start a little bit. And I'm going to want to make my music last the whole length of my intro, right? So I'm going to, that little area, I'm going to drag it out. And I want to drag it past because I want to give time for that fade out at the end. So I'm actually going to go a little bit past it. And then remember how we did our little fade out? We dragged that little ball over. I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to click and I'm going to drag that over and I'm going to actually have it start fading out just about after my talking finishes. So let's see what it sounds like with my voice and my music all together. So I'm going to take this, drag it over, and hey guys, I'm your host, Misty. Welcome to the Poetry Podcast. Today, we're going to be listening to a poem by Shel Silverstein. Okay, so I'm happy with that. The one thing I've noticed is that my voice is about the same level as the music, so the music is really loud. So right here I have a little volume indicator, and what I'm going to do is you see like right now they're at the same level. So I'm going to take my volume on my music, and I want to just drag it down just a little bit. Let's do that. Now I'm going to try it again and we're going to see how it sounds. And so again, with audio recording, it's a lot of just tweak, see what it sounds like, do a little tweak or a little change, see what it sounds like, and play around until you're happy. Hey guys, I'm your host, Misty. Welcome to the Poetry Podcast. Today, we're going to be listening to a poem by Shel Silverstein. Awesome. So I like how that sounds a lot more. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my audio tracks from earlier. I'm going to unmute them. And I need to drag them over so that way they line up with ending. So they start to begin right after my intro sounds. So I'm going to take this first one and I'm going to drag it over because what I want to do is I want to have it go right so that you always want to make your track just slightly overlap. So that's why I like having that little bit of quiet time. So do you see how this one ends right here? And if you follow that end straight up, I have a little overlap here. And again, right, I can listen. If I mute my other tracks, I can listen to this. So I'll just drag my slider. I don't need to listen to the whole thing. And I can just listen and see if it sounds okay, the transition. I've made me a moon catching net. Sounds good. So now I'm going to go on to my next one. So I'm going to go to this next one and I'm going to unmute it. I'm going to drag it over. Again, just a tiny bit of overlap. You don't want too much. So I have these quiet times again. If you have sound and sound right on top of each other, then you probably don't want to overlap. You want them to be right next to each other. So you, again, playing around with it and just seeing how it sounds. I'm just going to drag this over and I'm going to see how it sounds. Big ball of light. So tomorrow, just look at the sky. Sounds good. So I'm going to go to my last one. I'm going to unmute it. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it over. So again, that they line up. And I'm going to take my little slider over. So I just have to listen to the end of it, and I'm going to listen to it. Moon catching net. But if the moon still sounds good. So now I have all my audio recorded. And what I want to do is I always like, if I start with music, I like to kind of put my music again at the end. So I'm going to open up my loop library again. That music note, and I'm going to use the same one because I like to be consistent, right? Same music, kind of like an opening, closing, kind of like the theme song. And I'm going to use this retro funk again. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag it, and I'm just going to put it back on that same track that my intro music was on because I figure I can have my music all on the same track. So I'm going to come over here. You can see again, it's really long. So I'm going to get out of this loop here. I'm going to take this arrow, and again, I only want my closing music to be probably about another 5 to 8 seconds. It doesn't need to be long. I'm going to have it overlap a little because, again, I want to do that fade, right? So I'm going to take my fade and have it go a little bit past where my audio ends. And I'm going to have it fade out again. I'm going to come over here. We're going to see what it sounds like. Are in my moon catching net. Awesome. And if you want to do an audio outro, like a thank you for listening or tune in next time, you could do that here as well. But that is how we get all of our tracks in ready to go for our podcast.